Well, hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Nick, and I'm super excited for today's topic, how to be a good human.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Woot! We need good humans on the planet.
We do need good humans on the planet. How are you today, Kisma?
I am good. It's a little warm here in Carlsbad, but that's the beauty of the summer.
It is. Yeah, this is our summer. How is the jet lag coming?
Jet lag's pretty much done, right? It was full force. I mean, we were at Energy Mastery for 4 days. Mm-hmm. So that was a big poof. And yeah, pretty much back.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know it's good 12 hours, 12 and a half hours or so.
Yeah, 12 and a half or something. But.
So it's significant. I think it's kind of easier in certain ways than the 3 hours of just
3 hours is just kind of like, what? Is it breakfast? Is it lunch? And 12 hours, you just turn around your day.
I'm curious, what has been your experience with the energy tools? So with the energy mastery stuff, as far as helping with the jet lag?
Totally, because as you know, there are certain tools that we use to increase energy as well as to cleanse low vibe energy.
Right.
And so just by cleansing something that's heavy on the field lightens me up. And then the processes to increase energy are just great.
It seems like your body adapted really quickly.
It
actually.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's always cool to see.
We've done it a lot too. I've done.
Yeah.
I've been doing back and forth overseas for years.
Years. A lot longer than I have.
Longer than a decade. Yeah. Maybe 20 years.
I'm a newbie. You and Zoe in particular are just the travel ninjas.
We're pretty ninja-like. I need to pack better. I'm still... I use that word still, and it shows my packing. I think I need to hire a professional packer.
Really?
Yeah, I need like an India suitcase that's just ready to go with my uniforms, like a couple of track pants, T-shirts, one nice thing, appropriate shoes. We can go.
Good to go, because you really don't need a lot.
You don't need much when you're there.
The tough ones are when we've got like 3 or 4 different things to do, and you need specific clothes for each one.
Right.
You wind up with all this stuff that you're only going to wear once, but you're going to drag it all the way across the country.
I know. I did that because I was in New York before India, and I was like all these outfits and things, and I probably didn't need those.
It's tricky. Well,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
We are back and in a roll.
We are in a roll with the podcast.
What do you have going on?
Me right now, really just, coming off of Energy Mastery. It was a 4-day intensive with the founder, Siobhan Moran, who apparently we're going to get on the podcast pretty soon.
We will.
Oh, thanks for taking the initiative on that. I'm really excited to have her on the show, but boy, those events are really, really special. So I'm taking a little something from, that I've taken from our podcast with Elizabeth, and I'm letting myself geek out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to geek out on the Energy Mastery.
Geek out.
And it was a 4-day intensive. It is a really, really special training, and you never know exactly how it's going to go until you I've been through this training 5 or 6 times, and every one has been very unique. And I know part of that's me just, meeting it as a different human, but also, the group and how she teaches that group and the different things that get shared. And this was a really special one in the sense that it was a lot of discourse and a lot of the theory behind how all of this works and some of the important things. So I took a ton away from it, and I'm all charged up, and I'm super ready to just do some healings.
Yeah, because healings, and you have your own 2-day coming up. In a couple weeks.
In a couple weeks, in August 19th to
probably,
20th.
Right, as this gets. And then there's one in October.
Yep.
You're the dude. So anyone who wants to figure out how to manage their own energy and heal stuff going on, send Nick an email.
That was one of my biggest takeaways from it, and something that I am still really geeking out on is there is nothing that cannot be solved through this technology.
Incredible.
Nothing. And I haven't come up with anything. I was at the Long Beach Love Fest, so that was really fun. I just want to share this one story because it's just so special. This one lady came in and she just had a pounding headache. She gets migraines. I certainly can relate to that. and the music is thumping. It's like club music that's playing, and it's hot and it's loud and it's congested as more and more people come in. She's got this headache and she just pounding, and she stops by her booth. She stopped by a bunch of other booths. They gave her some oils. They gave her this. They gave her some crystals, all this other stuff, and nothing was touching it. And she's like, I think my answer's here. And I'm like, awesome. Like, why don't we sit down? So she sits down in the chair. 15 minutes later, I do my thing. 15 minutes later, the headache's gone. Just gone. And
wow.
She was amazed. Like, she was kind of, you could see in her face, she was kind of stunned. Like,
yeah, like, no, it's supposed to be here.
Yeah, like, that's not supposed to happen. Or, I'm supposed to still have at least some of that, but it was just gone for her. And she just floated on out of there. And it was so cool because we'd work on people and then we'd see them walk by, maybe an hour or so later, and they're just floating along.
They're happier than everyone else.
It's so
lighter
funny.
And brighter, levitating throughout the festival.
Yeah, and I just did a boatload of healing with many people, and it was just so exciting for me and really, really fun to do that. And we just had a blast. So
move over, Burning Man. Energy Mastery's here.
It's the new way to go.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But today we're talking about how to be a good human.
Oh,
so
what a great topic.
It's a great topic. Like, who doesn't want to be a good human?
Yeah, well, some people unfortunately don't.
I don't know. I think everybody wants to be a good human. I think some people just have a really tough time doing that.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. At least everyone listening to this podcast wants to be a good human.
Absolutely, without doubt. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how did this topic come about? This was your topic, Kisma. And
well,
I know
it's
it was
kind
from
of
India.
The second session. We're in a series of India, right? And I was just kind of laughing when I was there, because when one reaches out to the Vedanta Academy and says, I'm coming, and they are like, yes, you can come, the guru will be here then. You just go. And no matter what they're studying, because there is a 3-year course that's going on, and there's a series of texts that Swami Parthasarathi wrote that they go through, you're not going to be picky. Like, you have time to go and you're going to go. But inside somewhere, for me at least, there's always that little wish of like, oh, wouldn't it be great if it's the Bhagavad Gita or if it's the Upanishads, and, but you just don't want to jinx it. And so there, I'm accepted, I go, whatever. And then I get this email from a friend of mine there, Avani, and she's like, we're studying the Bhagavad Gita. And I was like, awesome. And then she comes back, it's chapter 12. And so once I was there, my friend Flavia and I were sort of laughing of like how most people are texting to one another, Game of Thrones, like the new season starting.
I was one of those people, by the way.
We're kind of texting, it's chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita. Like, it's just a total spiritual geek out, because chapter 12 has, the whole text has precious information, but this is the yoga of devotion.
Yeah. It's so beautiful.
And devotion is love directed towards a higher entity. So we can use the word God, we can use the word Brahman, universe, spirit, source, like whatever your word is. This is not a particular religion or faith-based podcast, but when we look at the ancient teachings, there is a supreme existence. And it's often referred to as God or Brahman. So devotion is when you have love, like if you can imagine you have love for another human, but you direct it even higher to your creator, to your founder, to this universal intelligent space that has allowed you to move and breathe and think and love. And here comes the train of truth as I say this. So it's a beautiful quality.
It's a really incredible chapter. I don't think we need to go into the whole story of the Bhagavad Gita
too much.
and to set all of that.
We can do that later.
Basically, to kind of put it in a context that will make sense for everybody is throughout, it's basically, there's battle being fought. The main dude kind of freaks out, and then he needs some wisdom, and lo and behold, God's right there for him and starts delivering this information, this sermon, this poem.
Yeah.
And he just unfolds it through these 18 chapters of this, just the most amazing philosophy. And chapter 12, getting a little bit more towards the end, getting into some of the more subtle concepts and talking about devotion, which is one of the 3 yogas. You've got the yoga of action, which is karma yoga. You've got the yoga of knowledge or wisdom, which is jnana yoga. And then you've got the yoga of devotion, which is bhakti yoga.
Right.
So these are qualities. In this chapter appears the qualities of a bhakti, or qualities of a devotee. So what the heck is that? Like, what are those qualities? Like, basically that was the question, is like, okay, well, here's a very devoted person. Like, what do I even look for?
Right.
What is that? Like, how do I even develop that?
Mm-hmm.
And we chose 5. There are many more, but we chose 5 to start with. And they are not hating any being, friendly, compassionate, free from attachment, and free from egoism. Now, what I didn't notice on that list is how many times a day they pray,
Right.
how much time,
How many mala beads
they have, what color robes they wear, or anything like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we actually, I think I asked this question when the big group discussions about rituals, because he brought it up in one of the lectures and how even lighting a candle or a camphor has great meaning. And I was like, are these rituals necessary? And he said, yes. Like religion, he will call these spiritual teachings religion, but he's like, it would be dead if it weren't for those rituals, because it will keep people moving forward or anchored, or at least a reminder. But when you get to the highest or the more subtle teachings, it's not about the candles. It's not even about if you go to church or temple or whatever. It's not about the robes and the malas and the tattoos and the whatever. It is who you're being.
Right.
The quality of you. So when we look at that first quality, not hating any being, and this is expanding the boundaries of love, not just loving your family, not just loving your friends. It is expanding the boundaries of love to those that you don't even know, those that you can't stand. That's a pretty tall order. And it's like Swami Parthasarathi writes in his commentary, he cannot afford to engender hatred for any being. If he does, then that particular feeling determines the strength of his devotion. So this is important. The strength of a chain is its weakest link. Its weakest link. And if someone is wanting to be a good human, let's just say devoted to being a better human to the planet, to whatever, God, whatever you're holding as a supreme essence, that strength is determined by how much you hate or do not love. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, but here's what's interesting that I see in our world is it becomes an us against them kind of scenario where the light versus the dark, or the good versus the bad, or whatever, the Republicans versus the Democrats is one that we just saw and kind of are continuing to see it play out here in the United States of this, two-party system, where it's like you feel justified in your... I know a lot of people wouldn't qualify it as hatred, right? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it's not. Which is very interesting. Like, not a lot of people would say, oh, they'll say, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. Yet their actions and their words are reflecting hatred, scorn, judgment,
resentment.
Condemnation, resentment, and blame. Of blaming all of those others for, the problems and et cetera, et cetera. Well, you can say that you don't hate anybody all you want, but at the end of the day, if your actions are reflecting that, that's a major problem.
Definitely reflecting non-love.
Yeah, that's a kinder way to put it.
Yeah, and this is a tricky thing, because what do we do if we're looking at someone, a human that, in your opinion, has maybe disgusting opinions or has done evil things? And this is the tricky piece, right? And he writes that, when you shift your focus of attention to the self within, meaning, let's call it like your divine spark, your God spark within. When you identify with the self, you realize the oneness of beings. And this is simply like you see another being as you. And that's like an identification. And you might not agree with them. You might not want to have dinner with them. You don't have to. But you're noticing and beginning to experience there's an interconnectedness. And so then the hatred can dissolve into, compassion, harmony, love.
So what's interesting, I think, is when you take that to the absolute, it's, all hatred is self-hatred.
That would be
all
correct.
Judgment is self-judgment.
Yeah.
In some way. And really the best hack for that is, I know you have a forgiveness meditation, and any kind of forgiveness exercises that you can do to really step in out of judgment, criticism,
right.
Or even if it gets into hatred. And heck, if you're hating somebody, just own it.
Yeah.
That's the best place to start, is like own it.
Awareness, don't push it down, don't deny it.
Then you can do something about it, but then you have the opportunity to step in forgiveness, and forgiveness is really the energy that allows that to shift so that you can not focus on the things that are so irritating and find the little gems that everybody has. Everybody has little gems. They have something.
Right.
And I think that's really beautiful. So
yeah, I totally agree.
So moving on to the next quality.
Friendly.
Friendly.
Isn't that interesting? And friendly, he talks about is like just being friendly with everyone. Now, I want to just put in parentheses here. This is not like the cheerleader, love on you, rah, rah, go up and have this false friendliness, because that is repelling. That is, I think, is like not okay.
Well, it can be. But I think like everybody's got their own way of expressing friendliness.
Right.
And that's one of them. But if it's like, oh, I'm being super friendly, like I have to be friendly, so I'm going to like, be really
what I mean? Like in your face, in your space, like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But what he means is, and he states in his commentary, and we'll put a link in the show notes if anyone wants to get Swamiji's commentary, the Gita, because it's so amazing. You learn to segregate the qualities in a person from the person.
Oh,
that's interesting, right? So he talks about how you can do this with animals, right? You understand that, like, if you saw a lion in the woods, you're not going to run up and try and pet that creature. But I suspect most, if not everyone that listens to this podcast, does not support the aimless shooting of lions.
Yeah.
Like, you do not want harm to come to that lion. In fact, you likely, when you look at it or watch a documentary about lions, you have great respect and awe. That's kind of what he's talking about. So when you're around another human, you can have that sense of, okay, you're not like me, but I don't want harm to come to you. And I can be friendly. I can say hello. I can be kind.
It's a correct expression.
Yeah, that's a great way. It's a correct expression. There's
really
no
cool.
reason for you to dislike another person because they have a different view.
Yeah. And that's something that, well, man, think about that.
I think when our companies, like those of you that work in companies, corporations, or CEOs that are teachers all of us, what would your world be like if you were like, we don't all have to dislike each other because we disagree?
Yeah.
Train of truth's coming by again.
It would be a game changer on so many levels. Somebody disagrees, somebody gets offended, then it becomes you need to be right against need to be right, and everybody's fighting.
And you got a battle and a war. And I'm not saying that you have to go hang with people. Please, we're busy. You got your families, you got your friends. It's not that. It's an attitude. So when we begin to understand these qualities are more of an attitude that radiates from within, then you walk it and you talk it.
Right. It's not in the expression like that, like what you described. That's one of them, but everybody has their own way of being, of expressing friendliness,
right.
And just, it's that internal attitude of, man, brothers and sisters, all of us.
Another human, same divine self spark within Betty as there is in me. That's when people pause and ponder that. And I think humans don't very often, because we're in this crazy, distracted world of, I want things fast. I want to get success. It's a whole lot of want and desire, and they don't stop and pause and ponder.
What do you think is the hack for this one? What hack do you use to stay in friendliness?
Pause before you think and speak and judge. And so when you're seeing somebody, like the really quick fix, and this will go towards compassion too, which is our next one. So can I lump it in a little bit and move on to compassion?
Yeah.
Okay. So compassion is the next one. That is like, that's not about a weakness and pity. It's a sympathy towards people who are less fortunate. They might be struggling. They might be ill, whatever. It's like, it's you have compassion. You don't judge and put them down. You have compassion. So this could be someone who has less physical strength or wellness, maybe less money, maybe less of an intellect or a disposition, like someone who's really suffering and they're agitated and they might seem mean. But when you have compassion and just sort of like the friendly, like one of the hacks is pause and be like, I wonder what it's like to be in that person's mind. Oh, I bet it's hell. All of a sudden you check yourself and you realize You got it good, and you would not want to be that person, but you understand their suffering. That allows you to perhaps extend a friendlier disposition and to have compassion.
It's like a real acknowledgement of the challenge of the human condition.
The challenge of the human condition, yeah.
It brings me back to, this makes me think of when I first started teaching yoga, seems like a lifetime ago. It's probably
It was a long time ago.
15 years, probably. And I was kind of insecure about it, and just not, a little unsure of myself. And, people would come into my classes and they just look like they got it all together. They got their looking good, they got their fancy pants on, they're dressed well, they're not, they're just like, oh, they're fine. But inevitably, when we would sit down and have, a heart-to-heart conversation, and you see below that surface layer of the struggles that so many people carry, I came to realize that not one person walks into that yoga class where everything is perfect.
Yeah, no.
And then I just expanded that out into the world, and I realized those are the people who are trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
Here, out in kind of like, in the wild, so to speak, you see so many people who are, they're just going about their day and they don't know where to go or know what to do and are really struggling. And man, I can guarantee that if you stop a stranger on the street and have a heart to heart, you're going to find something about that that's incredibly touching.
Yeah, I love that. It's very true. And the other thing that's important about the compassion, like when you're around someone who has less than you or is less in, like I said, physical strength or form or health or happiness, it's not about being proud and feeling better than them. Like that is such a deal breaker in being a good human. It really is. It is about just like this even keel. It's an observation and it's a wondering like, well, what could I do to help?
Yeah.
That's a compassionate person. And like those of you listening, when you've been around somebody like that, they give you goosebumps because they're so enlightened. They're so confident and they're so kind. And they have a way with humanity that's exquisite.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to see sometimes because it's hard to see beyond our own level of development.
Yeah, right.
So, that person, they're especially like a master teacher, really has that ability to just meet you where you're at.
Exactly.
And so it's easy to miss the subtleties of just how compassionate or objective or, kind that person is being. Especially if we're happen to be stuck in our own stuff, and it can actually seem harsh or off-putting in a certain way. And so it's kind of I think humbling whenever I am in the presence of a really phenomenal teacher. Certainly, whenever I'm in the presence of Swamiji, or like I was last week, with Siobhan and some of the other teachers in my life, it's just very humbling to see how compassionate they can be in that space. It's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah, totally. The next quality is free from attachment.
Nothing like choosing a light one.
Yeah. We've talked about attachment. We've done podcasts on attachment. This perspective, I think everyone, I just know, like if you just ponder this and put this in perspective, you're going to have a sense of freedom. And he talks about as being free from the I, mine, me, kind of free from selfishness, from that possession that, oh, this is mine. And the beautiful thing, this is really, really important because I know there's some spiritual teachings. It's like renounce everything, give it all up and go live in a cave. No. Like a spiritual being is active in the world. A spiritual human is doing stuff in the world and they have things. They have possessions. Possessions are not taboo. But what you want to know is when you have something, like look at it and be like, whoa, who designed this computer? What about these Rode mics we're talking on? Like, all right, we own these. We bought these with money, but we didn't design these. And it gives you a sense of awe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, this isn't mine. There are scores of humans that help to create this. And then when you're like, oh, it's my house. Well, what kind of feeling do you have when you're like, it's mine, I'm going to hold on to it? It's constricting, right? Whereas when you release it, like, wow, I live in this beautiful house and people are welcome to come visit. And when we take this, Swamiji always shares this story about children and how, and I want our parents to really listen to this, is when we teach our children, like, this is yours. He talks about going to stay at a family's home when he was speaking somewhere, and they put them in the child's room. Like this was probably years ago before he was 90 years old. And he's like, it's a really nice room. But on the door, it said, do not enter Bobby's room or something. It's my room. And he came back to the parents. It says, do not enter. And like, oh, we just put that on there for fun. And it's Bobby's room. And he's like, wow, and he shares with us like those parents are teaching their children to be possessive and to be attached and to not share. Not sharing is not compassionate, is not friendly.
Yeah, it shows up in really subtle ways.
Doesn't it, though?
Yeah, it's very insidious. And it is ingrained into our culture, So I think that's, if you want to start freeing yourself from this, it's just recognize this is a big task and it goes layers and layers deep. So just don't expect, that all of a sudden you're going to be perfectly unattached and free. But look for those little places where we start to take ownership, where we start to take personalize things and really, mine. A great example, my dad had his bike stolen. He was kind of pissed off to begin with,
Well, it's annoying.
Well, sure.
It's no fun.
But it was so cool because he got the gift to it from as well as it was a nice bike, but he went out and bought himself an even nicer bike, and he would have never done that if his bike had not been stolen.
Yeah.
And he just, it was just so cool to see him recognize that, and I'm like, oh man, that's so great. So I'm so happy for you. And, somebody else probably needed that bike and whatever. And I'm not saying don't lock up your bike and just...
Yeah, and it's not cool to steal, and it doesn't feel good, and it's not okay when your stuff is stolen. It doesn't, no one's saying that.
But you look at what you take away from it.
Yeah.
So he had the choice to be angry about it and to hold on to that. And then he's still attached to the bike that is gone. And so you're just going to continue to suffer unless, by a miracle, that bike makes his way back. And even then, some people will still be angry that it even happened. But beside the point, so you have a choice to stay in that, or you have a choice to release that, to recognize, okay, cool. Somebody else must have needed that more than I, and here's my chance to just buy a bike that's even cooler for me.
Yeah.
Right? You look for the little gifts like that and recognize where your attachment is, and it's like, that's so much more freedom. And think of all the hours that you could spend being angry about something that happened or something that you lost, rather than being like, okay, cool, next.
And it's freeing. It means that rather than attached to your possessions, you have more of an inward focus of just how, exquisite and divine you are, your creation, your being, your breath, your feelings, your emotions. Like, focus on that and focus on elevating that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for bringing that one in.
That's a good one.
Wasn't sure where you're going to go with that. I was like, oh man, are we going to get into this like a whole series of podcasts?
It
just
is.
on attachment?
I mean, attachment does create suffering. There's no way around it. And we can all look at the level of attachment just by looking at the level of reaction to when things happen. Say, like, you could lose your car keys and it's incredibly frustrating, but is it going to turn you completely sideways?
Yeah.
Right? You can have an accident, God forbid, or somebody hits your car. Super frustrating, could be expensive. Is it going to ruin your life? Right? No. I mean, you don't want it to, right? That's the whole thing. So yes, we want not bad things to happen to us, but it's like how we react in the face of that.
That's beautiful. The thing that I was going to share is just a little nugget for a lot of our entrepreneurial friends who so often, if you're in the entrepreneurial community, one of the biggest things that you hear that people want is more freedom. I want more freedom. That's the reason I quit my day job because I just didn't like people telling me when I had to be wherever and how much I could make and what I wanted more freedom.
Right.
And they'll make it about all that other stuff. It has to be this amount of money. It has to be this kind of whatever. And I have to have this much free time and the laptop lifestyle and all this stuff. But man, I got to tell you, that stuff pales in comparison to the cage that we create in our own mind.
Absolutely.
Trapping ourselves in attachment.
Absolutely. So, the lack of freedom is in the mind.
Yep. So for anybody out there who's looking for more freedom in your life, this is your answer.
Yes, totally. No matter how much money you're making or not making. And if you're looking to make more money, because we're always fans of making more money, it's a great energy. It's so much easier when you're not attached.
Yeah, so much easier.
So
ironic, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Feel a new course coming on. But for now, parking lot that.
Yeah, parking lot.
Here's the last one for today. Free from egoism.
What is egoism?
Well, this is really interesting because, I've had some great teachers say, oh, the ego's necessary. It's like the epigenetic overlay of holding your morphogenetic field, like having a personality function in the world. And that can be true. But this reference is letting go of the I am the supreme. I am alone. I exist. I am the doer of all things. And I have a feeling we don't have too many listeners out there that are like that, but I bet you know somebody who that has given such importance to themselves, it's at the expense of all others. That's egoism. And it's really, really unfortunate. It's like the I am the doer. I've done it all.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an extreme example, but shades of this certainly show up in everybody's life.
Yes.
Where we take that, like, I did that, And so it becomes a very interesting, to me anyway, a very interesting fine line between really taking extreme ownership over yourself. Like, there's nothing wrong with having pride in your work. But when you become prideful, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
That's egoism coming in. But having pride in your work is incredibly important.
Exactly.
That's how we develop excellence.
Yeah, achievement, we want to do well. Here's one way to really check ourselves is you're a spoke in the wheel of life. One of the greatest examples is if you have a $1 billion corporation, but the mailroom goes on strike or the cleaning crew doesn't show up, you no longer have organization in that company.
Yet the CEO can probably take off for a month at a time.
Right. And everything's going to function. So it's like, wow, who else out there has contributed? And this is like such a way to heighten your devotion, whatever win you've had, whatever deal you closed, whatever relationship you've created in your life, who else supported that? Like, are you sitting next to the love of your life that maybe your friend from high school introduced you to? You didn't just create that. Someone else played a role. And, it's the amazing thing about these qualities is I'm sure you're all seeing is when you get one, you have the others. And I remember Swamiji, and we'll probably talk about more next week, so stay tuned for part 2. But he said, pick a couple or even one that really speaks to you and work on that.
Yeah.
So like
keep
if you're,
it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. So if you're finding that you're withdrawing from people, you're not connecting to people, you'd rather sit in a corner and be on your phone, take a big breath and go out and be friendly. Because once you start being friendly, you're going to have some compassion for people. You're going to have less ego that you need to sit in the corner and be all by yourself because you're going to start to see who else has done that or what. And you're even going to have less attachment because you'll be interconnected with other people.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the places where I just really geek out it's hard to find the words. Like it is so awe-inspiring. Like when I just think about let's just use a podcast for example. Like you said before, the microphones.
I know.
I would have no idea how to develop, microphone or certainly anything as cool as this.
How they work.
And then
the cords.
And then the computer. We're just we're recording this on a laptop and all. And how amazing is that? Like this, 20 years ago, this would have to be done on a big machine, and now they've shrunk it down to this laptop, and I can just do it myself. And it's like, oh my god,
and sending it over to Jason,
right?
Sending it over to Rohan, having Tony do show notes, like
we just beam it out,
and then so grateful.
It's like so incredible, right? And then it goes out through the interwebs, right? And it's out there, and then like magically you found the podcast.
I know, and you're listening to
however you found this podcast. Like it's just always a miracle to me of like how people find us and how people find this information. That if there's to me, the existence of God is self-evident just in that.
Amazing.
There's no way that this is chaos, and it's just so incredible, and then the sun rising and setting every single day it just magically happens so that we can exist and have our lives and go about our days and hop in our cars and go to work and do everything that we do and have the people in our lives and all this amazing stuff that we just get to do because, and you don't have to sweat it out. You can just flip on your AC. Like, that's awesome,
Right.
And you could go on and really and truly, if you want to connect to a true sense of humility and abundance, is just sit quietly for 5 minutes and trip out on that.
Yeah. Nick is not over here vaping, by the way. He just really geeks out on this stuff.
I just really geek, like I really do. But that is the essence of divine abundance, is the recognition of just the countless blessings. It's just countless.
There's so much. So
whenever we get the urge to be like, oh, look at all that I'm doing,
trip out on that.
Yeah, extremely humbling to recognize just how impossible that would be for us to do what we do without countless helping hands.
So true.
Helping us every seen and unseen along the way. It's just incredible.
So I think that's good. We'll do part 2.
Yeah, if you let me go any longer, I'm going to really float away
I think
here.
we got to bring it down. Everyone get grounded out there, have a good glass of water, do some squats.
So if you got value from this, if this is something that you really like, please go ahead and share it with a friend or family, and pass it along. Like,
download it in iTunes, rate, review. We so appreciate you.
Goes a long ways. And more than anything, let's just really appreciate the awe-inspiring brilliance that allowed you to find this, allowed us to find you, and allow this information to get transferred. So all glory. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
And peace, everybody.
Namaste.